Now, our next speaker will talk about the role of government in supporting South Africa's young talent. Yershen Pillay is the NYDA was established in 2009, so executive chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency. It was established by President Jacob Zuma to facilitate matters of youth development. Yershen is the only previous board member to be renominated to serve on the new board of the NYDA. He is also currently the national chairperson of the Young Communist League of South Africa and was appointed by former Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe to serve on the HR Development Council of South Africa in 2010. In 2013, President Jacob Zuma appointed Yershen to serve on the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Council of South Africa. Yershen, a social sciences graduate from UCT, majored in politics and economics and was the recipient of the UCT Deputy Vice Chancellor's Leadership Award in 2005. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please help me in welcoming on stage Yershen Pillay.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and very good morning to all, and to ArcelorMittal for organizing this very important summit. It's indeed a privilege to be here amongst the young talent of our country. And let me start by perhaps saying to the rising stars, as you claim your rights, also claim your responsibilities. I think one of the mistakes we've made as the youth movement in this current generation is that we've been too quick to claim our rights without realizing that, in fact, we now have more responsibilities in leading the country. But my task today is really to speak to you about the role of government in supporting young talent. And I firstly want to highlight to you or give you a background about what government has actually done or put in place over the last few years in order to support youth. In fact, it was only in 1996 that government actually put in place a dedicated, institutionalized approach to youth development in the country. It was in 1996 that we established the National Youth Commission. Following that, in 2001, we established the Umsubomvu Youth Fund to support youth entrepreneurship in the country. And these two institutions were merged in 2009 into a single entity that would link policy and legislative development to implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of youth development interventions in the country. This being the National Youth Development Agency, or the NYDA. Government has a role of facilitating an enabling environment for youth in the country, but also to ensure access, on the other hand, to facilitate or foster excellence, and also to drive innovation. Now, to facilitate an enabling environment for youth development, a number of policy and legislative interventions have been made over the years. This being the National Youth Policy, which is currently under review, the Integrated Youth Development Strategy, and the National Youth Development Agency Act 54 of 2008, which actually provides for the establishment of the NYDA and defines its mandate, roles, and responsibilities. The NYDA is actually government's implementing agency for youth development, and its purpose is threefold. Firstly, to create and promote coordination in youth development matters. I'm sure you would agree with me that a lot of work is being done. Many private sector companies are doing a lot of bursaries, scholarships, programs for training and development, but it's extremely scattered, highly fragmented, and there's really no golden thread that seeks to link all these interventions and maximize impact. And so the NYDA's purpose is really to serve as that golden thread that brings the public sector, private sector, civil society, community, and young people together in order to maximize the actual impact of what we invest in youth development. Secondly is to mainstream youth issues into all aspects of society. And that is really to ensure that youth needs, interests, and aspirations are always considered in all discussions that take place, whether in the public or private sector. The third real function is to facilitate youth development in the country. And this is really to provide that enabling environment, but also to enlarge the opportunities available to youth. We see youth as being the leaders of their own development. And so government, and so too should be the role of private sector and civil society, would be to support young people as they lead their own development. In recent times, we've taken a multi-pronged approach to youth development, and this is largely because of the challenging context and the magnitude of the task we face. I think far too often we're also too critical of ourselves. If we take the challenge of youth unemployment, it's not a local phenomenon. It's actually a global challenge. Countries like Greece and Spain actually have higher youth unemployment rates than we do. Not that we should be comparing ourselves to them, but just simply to highlight the fact that it's a global challenge that we are facing if we talk about issues of youth unemployment, for example. But today we have a population of more than 52 million, and approximately 21 million are young people between the ages of 14 and 35. Unfortunately, the vast majority are out of school or out of work. And youth unemployment is our biggest challenge that we face as a country, with 36% of those who are unemployed being youth. In fact, approximately 2.1 million young people are classified as being discouraged from seeking employment. Another challenge is the transition from school to work, and especially for young black people, black young people. A Cape Area panel study indicated that only 2% of young black South Africans actually made the transition from school to work successfully. And we have very little programs apart from the National Youth Service Program that enables the successful transition from school to work. So we face challenging times, but with challenging times comes a multitude of opportunities. And I think far too often we focus on the negative as opposed to the opportunities and the positives that are out there. The advantage of actually having a youth bulge, whereby we have a vast majority of young people and a youth population growing at a faster rate than the adult population, is that we can actually derive a demographic dividend. And by a demographic dividend, I'm referring to your youth productive age population being greater than your dependent age population. With that, we should have consumption being lower than production. We should be deriving significant benefits from savings and recapitalization of our economy. But we are unable to actually reap the demographic dividend that we should be. The reason for this is that many young people are simply unemployed, and so they are not actively participating in the economy. So we need to take advantage of this demographic dividend, because by 2037, we will have an aging population. And as we go towards an aging population and having more of our dependent age working population being greater than the productive age, we will have lost the opportunity for socio-economic growth and development. Thus, our multi-pronged approach to youth development focuses in 5 areas. Next one. Education and skills development on the one hand, because we need to ensure that young people are more employable. I'm sure you would agree. You can incentivize an employer with whatever tickles their fancy. The bottom line is a young person who does not have the requisite qualifications, skills, or experience will not be employed. And so it's important that education and skills development is of high priority so that we ensure that young people are employable. Secondly is a focus on economic participation. We need to support young entrepreneurs. We come from a history or culture of young people getting a matric, finding a job seeking. We don't have a culture of job creation amongst young people. And that's probably why our total entrepreneurial activity rate, which measures the rate of youth entrepreneurship globally, is extremely low at 7.6%. Thirdly is the issue of health and well-being. We need to have healthy young people in order to be productive members of society. And we are facing challenges of teenage pregnancy, HIV/AIDS, mental wellness, all of which needs to be considered as we devise programs for developing young talent. Policy and research, as well as youth service and social cohesion, building bridges of social capital to take advantage of our rich diversity that can be able to foster the kind of growth and development that we need. And this means that we need to be able to ensure that young people are more employable, healthy, productive citizens of society. The NYDA, through this multi-pronged approach, the 5 multi-pronged approach, we've been able to assist more than 6 million youth with some kind of product or service to better their lives, be it a grant, a loan, a voucher for business non-financial support, career guidance, or just simply valuable information to access the opportunities that are out there. There are a lot of opportunities, we know that. But many young people, especially in rural areas, simply don't have the information to access the opportunities that are out there. And that becomes a critical role of government and the NYDA as the implementing agency of government to provide for that. Partnerships have proved critical to our success. Just recently, the NYDA partnered with Prime Media, MTN, and ABSA, amongst other private sector entities, on a program to support 15,000 young grade 11 and 12 learners to go through an innovative entrepreneurship development program. This program used cinema to actually drive new thinking about business development models that are currently out there and how young people should be exposed to a culture of entrepreneurship at a very early age. I had the opportunity of meeting my counterparts in South Korea, who also then introduced me to the Samsung plant. And the first thing I took note of was that most of the senior managers in that plant are young South Koreans below the age of 35, who are actually being paid very well, but are driving the innovation that we currently see coming from companies like Samsung. And I think that it's, again, probably a challenge to the private sector out there. Are we really taking advantage? Are we really taking a risk on young people and deriving the innovation and the solutions that could be provided if we were to give young people a chance in the mainstream? And this is just but one of the many public-private partnerships that are out there that we need to really foster more of. I'd like to highlight 5 points. The one is that it's important that we turn the workplace into a training space. There are 2 examples I often share based on my own experience in the construction and financial sectors of what should not be happening. In the construction industry, I visited a site recently where young people are pushing wheelbarrows. Now, if we're talking about skills transfer, there's no skills transfer when a young person is pushing a wheelbarrow on a construction site. Where we have a shortage of first aid inspectors, in the construction industry, we could have young people being trained as such. But this is what is currently happening, not in all, but in the main. And in the financial sector, where we have a shortage of young black accountants, especially young women, we have young women being treated as tea ladies instead of actually having them receiving practical, meaningful skills transfer so that they can actually be successful accountants once they complete their training on site. Again, not the norm, or rather the exception in these 2 examples, but it should not be happening if we are really serious about skills transfer. Secondly is making use, and the previous speaker spoke about the use of technology and social media to pursue youth and national developmental objectives. A recent study indicated that 98% of young people between the ages of 14 and 35 actually have a cell phone and use that cell phone. And I'm sure you would agree it could even be 100%. But almost every young person has a cell phone, they use the internet, they make use of social media. And so we need to invest more into understanding and effectively using social media to motivate, inspire, and educate. Thirdly is encouraging and rewarding excellence. We slowly, unfortunately, were tumbling down a culture of mediocrity, of entitlement, as opposed to facilitating a culture of service, of responsibility, of commitment, and of excellence. And we need to cultivate a culture of excellence amongst the youth, from what you would have seen. And it's important, at the recent Presidential Youth Indaba and at the recent Youth Parliament, Youth and Children's Parliament, young people actually stood up and said that we don't agree with the pass rate for the National Senior Certificate being 30%, and that we'd like it to be higher than that. And one young person asked the question, why does society not have confidence in us as the youth? I think it's an important question that we need to ask. Why do we not have confidence in our youth? And we should be having confidence in our youth because many young people are excelling. whether it be in urban or rural areas. The problem is the support that will enable them to go further. And what we've done, for example, in the NYDA is establish a state-funded presidential scholarship fund, the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Fund, specifically for rural youth, as we need to do more for them, encouraging them that you are capable of excelling irrespective of your social conditions, and if you do, well, the support will be there for you to study in the career of your choice. I met a young lady from Sebokeng, a community plagued with service delivery protests, who said to me while young people were protesting, she was busy revising for a matric, ended up getting 5 distinctions, receiving the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Award, and today is studying astrophysics at the University of Witwatersrand. And this is a young lady with no parents, who was studying with a sister, with very little, in fact, understanding what real poverty is. So we need to have more of these type of support interventions from both public and private sector. Next is the importance of mentorship. Many young people really need that shoulder to lean on in order to make it through and develop into better, more responsible adults. Many of us would agree in school we would have that teacher that you could always go to, providing that mentorship role. And this is what we have, even as the NYDA, spoken to our unions, SATU, about, that teachers need to play a mentorship role in schools, but also the role that captains of industry need to play and take the role of mentorship very seriously if we're really going to talk about developing young talent. Next is the need to support young entrepreneurs. And that doesn't mean just providing financial and non-financial support. It also means big business procuring products and services from youth-owned businesses. We had 7 out of young entrepreneurs in the Forbes top 30 list of most promising young entrepreneurs on the continent. So we do have young entrepreneurs in the country. We do have successful ones, but the question we need to ask is, are we really supporting them by procuring from them if we are big business? And I don't think we are, and perhaps we need to really take that more seriously. Finally, let me conclude by saying that government, business, labor, and communities all have an equal responsibility in developing young talent. And I would most certainly agree that we really need to have confidence in our youth, because our youth are, of course, our future. Program Director, thank you very much.